Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful, it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing today. Also, before I introduce today's guest, lately I've been doing my podcast from this room, which has an echo because we're all working from home. So if my audio is a little off this week, I apologize for that, but it will not take away from this amazing episode with our amazing guest. We have with us Jennifer Sanford. Hi, Jennifer. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. Before we start talking about all of your expertise in and out of automotive, I'll give you a quick bio and intro. It's very impressive. I want our listeners to know who they're listening to. Jennifer recently joined STELLA Automotive, a division of Telepathy Lab. Thank you. As the VP of Marketing and Industry Relations with responsibility for marketing, brand management, and industry relationships within automotive. Obviously, she brings a ton of expertise, not just in automotive, but also in health insurance and recruitment industries. But within automotive, Jennifer built and led marketing, lead generation, brand management, and OEM business development at Dominion Dealer Solutions as VP of Marketing there. So we'll learn a lot about your background, how you got into auto, how you came back to auto, which we're very excited about. So we'll learn about that, and then just a little bit of her personal life, which I thought was interesting. In Jennifer's free time, her and her husband spend a lot of time sailing in the Bay. So I can't wait, and I see her picture in the background for those that are actually watching the video. So we'll definitely need to know about that. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here. Thanks so much. It's quite an opportunity.
Yes, and I know I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn, so I know that you have the right mind for the Inside Auto podcast. We're going to basically break down all the challenges in automotive. Before we get into the details, though, tell us, how did you get into automotive and how did you start at Dominion? What was that trajectory like for you?
Well, I had worked with Dominion. I worked there for 21 years when it was Trader Publishing Company, and I started in their recruitment advertising industry vertical and worked there for 12 years and became their leader of their key accounts program and marketing program. Mm-hmm. And then Robert Burnt, who was the president of our Dominion automotive side, gave me the opportunity to come into automotive. And it was an opportunity to work with a bunch of businesses that we had acquired and help them establish brand management, basically make them more consistent across the brands, and then ultimately turn it into a single brand. And then just had the wonderful opportunity to work with them to create an OEM team, lead generation team, and work alongside some of the industry greats like George Nenny and Glenn Garvin and Bryce Englert. I mean, some of these amazing people that all were at Dominion at the time.
And then that sounds like a huge project that you were doing over the course of a couple of years, right? Breaking down all the different brands and then consolidating it into one. Did you then take that into the health industry? I know you left automotive a little bit and then you came back to us, which we're very happy about. What was the difference like in the automotive industry versus healthcare industry? Many might be very
stunningly different. I mean, I think in the automotive industry, we complain about government regulation in a number of different areas. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, we got nothing on healthcare. I mean, every move is measured. And for the sake of learning the industry, I went ahead and got my health insurance license. And I did all the studying, I took all the tests. I got a 96, I will say, on my exam.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it was an amazing amount of legal code I had to learn to do that.
Wow.
Every decision we made in marketing was fact-checked by a lawyer. Literally every ad we published was reviewed by a lawyer.
Wow.
So we feel like we've got government regulation. It's got nothing on healthcare. But the industry itself was fascinating. I had the opportunity to do the same thing for one of Virginia's largest insurers, build a marketing team. And they're still there. They're doing great things. And the opportunity to come back with a fascinating technology arose. And I really missed technology and I really missed automotive. So couldn't have been better opportunity for me to come back.
Yeah. And at a great time too, because there is so much dealer tech adoption right now because of COVID, but, obviously accelerated because of COVID, but without any connection to COVID as well. I think we were on that track to real dealer tech adoption, which is exciting. And at STELLA Automotive, you are building some really amazing technology that I don't think is necessarily exists. It doesn't really necessarily exist in automotive yet. It's really top tier. So I would love for you to share that with us, what it is, the concept of it. And then also, because we're going to get into the challenges of the industry, let's talk about how STELLA is really changing the face of customer-centric marketing and sales operations for dealers, which is a huge challenge right now for automotive.
Wow, you couldn't have asked that question better. I mean, Elena, my goodness. So as you said, we've been dealing with a digital landscape. And as you said, COVID accelerated that. And the fact is, we all, for every purchase we make, whether it's art on our walls or it's a golf cart or anything, we are doing research in independent sites before we go to a retailer to make a purchase.
Yeah,
that's what's been happening for years in automotive. COVID accelerated that, but the in-person experience is still needed at the dealership. At the end of the day, people are going to take possession of a vehicle. They're going to need to buy things for it, get it serviced. So we spend a gobsmacking amount of time and attention on our digital footprint. We need to kind of go back to basics and shift that paradigm and look back at our dealership for a minute, because one of the biggest challenges facing our industry today is staffing shortages. Mm-hmm. So how are we managing that in-person experience? And does it match that online experience, that amazing website, all the reputation management, all of the effort we're putting into that? Does the in-person experience match that? When a person actually calls to place that order or to schedule an appointment or to come and see if you actually have the floor mats that are on your dealership website to come in and purchase for their husband's car, are they there? Or is someone going to answer the phone? Is that phone experience conducive to actually having them want to come to your dealership? And then when they walk in the door, I think we're so afraid now of walking up to a customer. I think that image of that bothersome and annoying sales rep has pervaded our consciousness, that I can walk into dealerships and never speak to anybody. And it's stunning to me. Where is that friendly dealership guy that or gal that I used to see every time I walked in? So I think we need to take a step back, look at the basics and saying, do these things align? And that's where STELLA has an opportunity to help.
That's wonderful. And I think so many things that you mentioned here are things that dealers should be thinking about. Particularly just a theme that I've been hearing on the Inside Auto podcast specifically is just about that approach, that human approach. How do dealers, adjust to what consumers want and what shoppers want, but also are actually present and there for them and continue that amazing experience from online to offline. And actually something recently came up. I think this was with April Simmons, who oversees 10 stores in Arizona. And she was mentioning that, because of the inventory shortage, her staff doesn't know what it's like to actually negotiate or to have a real conversation with a buyer, because the demand is so high and the inventory is so low that anything goes. And so, she reiterated and really spoke about how this is the time to train your staff. This is the time to make sure that they don't lose that touch. So much of what you said reminded me of that, just because dealerships should still keep the customer at the center, but figure out how to evolve with the technology that's evolving as well, and continue to, again, keep the customer at the center. And make sure you're approaching the customer that's expecting it when they come in the showroom, but also how are you just making it easier for the customer? it's okay to bring technology into that process, either before or after they come into the showroom, to just make that, again, very customer centric and very customer focused. I think that's a great mission.
It is. And it really has to deal with training your team, staff orientation, recruiting and hiring. I come from a background in recruiting, 12 years in that. And I can't understate how important it is, the recruiting and hiring process. As an industry, we don't have a great reputation and we don't have good statistics on staff retention. Some of that has to do with compensation models and just basic HR training. There's some really great companies and trainers that are helping businesses today orient themselves better for that. But the time you spend in the recruiting and hiring and training pays enormous dividends down the road. Helping dealers become better managers, training the trainers for that. And then there are just times when technology can be your friend, right? Online, it can be a great assistance to you. It can be, as in with STELLA Automotive, it can empower your teams to do more important things. And that's what we try to do, is strengthen the team, empower the team so that we can take care of some of the basic stuff so your teams can focus on the important customer needs.
Yes, I think another theme that's been coming up, but just to reiterate that, dealerships that are scared of implementing technology to empower their teams are going to be the dealerships that are unfortunately not going to make it. So I want to reiterate this, and I want dealers to hear this. Technology is your friend. It's part of a process. Yes, it's part of training, of course. But it's definitely something that dealers cannot be scared of, because it's going to take off all the manual, legwork that dealers are doing, make their processes more efficient, make their people happier. It's all a circle. It's all a cycle here. So I think once automotive gets there with the tech adoption, I think we'll have a better reputation, we'll have better HR, we'll have better retention. I know employee retention is something that the industry struggles with, of course, as well. So I definitely agree with that. On that note, do you have any other challenges that you see in automotive, especially with your experience in and out of automotive? I'd love to know, how data, for example, our relationship with data in automotive, how does that compare to other industries that you've worked with? We've talked a little bit about this offline, so I'm excited for you to bring this to the podcast. But I'd love to hear your take on data, where it stands in automotive, and what your predictions are for 2022.
Well, that's an awfully big question to ask.
Yes, that's true. We could create a whole other episode just on that. But
I think dealers have to wrap their hands and arms around what they've got and own it. And I think there's an opportunity today for some of the growing strength of the larger groups to assist and facilitate a more even playing field with technology vendors. Not all technology is hard. Some technologies like STELLA are really super easy to implement. Others are very challenging because you have to get your arms around your data and how you're going to use it and who's going to have access to it. I think that's going to continually change. Having a single source of truth in your dealership is key and important, and knowing how you manage that and how you mine that will determine how successful you're going to be as a dealership and as a dealership body. If you don't know what you've got, you're basically rebuying your stuff every day from Google. It's just the fact of life. You've got to really understand what you have and utilize it to your best efforts. And there are trainers out there who can help you know how to do that and how to help you deploy effective marketing technologies to use that. But until dealers understand that, they're just going to continue to recycle the same ad dollars over and over and over again. So I think it's up to our leaders in our dealership groups. I think it's up to NADA, some of the STAR programs out there to help dealers make sense of this. If you're not going to NADA, go. There will be a million people talking about this topic. It's a great educational opportunity to learn more.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think ownership and control of data is going to be, even in 2020, 2021, it's what we were talking about. But I think 2022 is going to be the year of execution. If we can get overhead and more, streamlined data from NADA, from the manufacturers, I think that can actually support dealers owning and controlling their data on a whole nother level. Not sure if this year that will be the year, but I really advocate for that. And I think that if you have the streamlined data from the top, it will trickle down and it will make sure that also tier 3 will own and control their own data. And it's just a simple value for the automotive industry that they have to adopt.
Well, just take a look at what's in your CRM.
Yeah.
Make your CRM your focus. It's a gold mine. It's an amazing amount of information that you have right there. You can use that for remarketing, for lookalikes, for all kinds of means of retaining your customer base as well as expanding it. Just invest in your CRM and spend some time there. That would be my biggest recommendation for dealerships not sure where to start on the data question.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And also it goes back to just being customer centric. Everything is in your CRM. That's where your customers live. I don't think it's just about being able to use, to retarget. Of course, that's part of it. But there's so much revenue that you can actually get from your CRM. If you actually go back and look at the leads that never bought from you, or the people that need to service your car, I'm sure they're dealers are doing this to a certain extent, but they're taking a certain percentage of their CRM and appropriately engaging with them. But there's so much potential that you can be pulling out from your CRM and revenue that you could be pulling out from your CRM. So I agree that's a great place, a great first place to start. Clean up your CRM data. It's much easier said than done, but there has to be a focus on that as a first step. So I think it's a pretty practical tip.
Yeah, I think as we emerge from COVID, I would encourage dealerships and businesses, not just dealerships, but to go back to basics. Take a look at, where were we before COVID? What were some of the important things then when people did come into our dealerships? And where are those customers today? Yes, demand is higher than supply, but that's going to change. So this is a great time to inspect what you're doing, how you're doing it, and make sure all of those in dealership functions meet your approval, meet your expectations. And take a look at what's in that CRM. It is a gold mine.
Yep, I agree with that. And back to the training piece too, it is a good time to actually train and make sure that you don't lose that touch for when inventory and supply goes back up, which I'm really hoping to see in 2022. Although dealers haven't had it that bad without inventory.
Yeah, they've done okay.
Right? It's just about it's just about increasing gross on fewer units, and they're in the same boat. So I think it's great. Now, before we sign off, I do want to hear a little bit. I like getting to know our podcast guests also on a personal level. I'd love to hear about your sailing hobby, what that's like. Again, for those who are actually watching this on video and not listening on, Spotify or Apple, Jennifer's here with a beautiful picture of sailboats behind her. So tell us a little bit about your hobby. I'm sure many of our listeners sail as well.
Well, my husband and I both grew up sailing small boats, racing. He raced sunfishes and lasers, and as did I. And so when we met, it just became something that we started to do together. And we bought a little boat together, and gradually those boats got larger. We had one boat for 20 years. I raised our children on it. And we also had friends who had boats, so we would do all kinds of fun getaways with them. So we live on the Chesapeake Bay, and our boat's at a marina not far from our house. It's very easy for us to just
sail away.
Weekend. It's awesome. It's wonderful. I found that my husband doesn't sail once a week. He gets grumpy. So it's a natural part of our
happy marriage is make sure that you have a sailboat or a few sailboats.
Yeah, that's
wonderful. That's awesome. I definitely need to find some kind of extreme hobby for us here. Not that it's extreme sports, but I need to think of something.
Well, I encourage people of all ages. In fact, COVID was great for sailing because kids couldn't do other things. And so our little marina here, we were able to see massive programs and getting children involved. People of all ages learning how to sail for the first time because they could do it outside. There was no threat of exposure and infection. So you can learn at any point in your life, and it's a lifelong hobby. Highly recommend.
Okay, well, we'll try it out. I have sailed once. I wasn't really in control of the sailboat, It's definitely something that everyone, I think you're right. I think everyone should try it and should do a lesson or two, because there's also just a lot of coordination involved. It's probably very healthy for not just your physical body, but also just mentally. It's I think there's something about it that's probably very, very good for your mental health. So I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for joining the Inside Auto podcast. For those of you that enjoyed this episode, you can find us on insideautopodcast.com or autoleadstar.com/podcast. We're on all mainstream outlets, so feel free to find us there. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elena. So appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.